Now I'm going to do a news of the day video. Now that the internet's all kerfuffled over the first three videos I did today, we're going to have a discussion about what's making news around the hockey world. Chris Tanev, there haven't apparently been any offers from the Canucks to this stage. It looks like he's going to hit free agency, and a team that may be very interested in his services, and it makes sense, is the Pittsburgh Penguins. The Penguins need to upgrade their blue line. They already have Brandon Tanev. If you add Chris, his brother. See, this is one of those things I don't appreciate, is when a team that I don't cheer for decides they're going to add players that I like. And I take this as being a plan by Pittsburgh. Like, okay, we're gonna get Shannon to cheer for us somehow. So if we can get Chris Tanev to come play with his brother Brandon, that'll do it. No, but they still have McCann. So it's a plot. We'll see whether or not they can free up enough cap space. I would think Johnson's on his way to a buyout. There may be other guys on their way to buyouts. Yeah, I did the buyout board today, and I just went through just some names as examples, more of an explanation of how the whole buyout process works, because I get asked about it a lot. And then people looked at the names on the board and went, oh, he's saying Stamkos going to get bought out. No. But anyways, there you go. Oh, comment section. Never lets me down. Finger guns. All right. Jacob Markstrom, fourth in the Vezina vote. So now the voting's out there. Jacob Markstrom was fourth in voting for Vezina. So for fans of the Canucks, Markstrom definitely had some votes out there, and he was pretty close to being one of the finalists. So, yeah, people know how good Markstrom's been, and there's no talk of Markstrom's extension yet either. I would think the two sides are going to try to hammer something out, but it's going to be dependent on what the cap hit is and the term. I want Markstrom to stick around as much as the next guy, but it's going to be a matter of those two things put together. And for Jim Benning, he has made some questionable to bad decisions when it comes to the free agent market and to extensions. And I have been a big fan of him kind of sitting it out for the most part, on the odd occasion when he has, and I don't want to see this team cap strapped a year from now because of decisions made now. So hopefully he, realizes the big picture is the long term future of the Canucks and getting Hughes and Pettersson re-signed next year. Technically they can re-sign them sooner than that, of course. I don't want this to go right to the wire with those restricted free agents. So it'll be interesting to see what Vancouver does. If Tanev leaves, I don't know. The blue line, it's going to be interesting. Rathbone is seen by some as being ready to play right now. Levy may be expected to end up in that top six for the fall / winter whenever we get this thing going. And it'll be interesting to see what happens. Andrew Cogliano, after the game last night for Dallas, said the lack of fans speeds up the animosity in the series. So where you'd normally have fans and there's a lot of crowd noise and there's distractions in the arena, there aren't right now. Right now it's you and the other team, and you really don't like that other team pretty quickly. And yeah, so this kind of segues itself into a large long article published on ESPN today from Greg Wyshynski, I believe is how it's pronounced, and Emily Kaplan, on bubble life and how the bubble life has worked out. And you see very quickly in the comments underneath that the people actually think that a stripper was brought in for Demko. Are you serious? There are still people that are that thick. Anyways, bubble life has been uneventful for the most part, according to the players, and it's been they feel kind of like they were lied to, where they were told you're going to get to all this fun stuff, and then they get there, nope. And again, the NHL has had 0 positive tests for 8 weeks. This is part of how. All the fun stuff the players want to do, it's all the stuff that could potentially introduce a situation that could jeopardize the season. So there's been some drinking in the bubble. And again, you're not going to tell a guy after he goes out on the ice and plays a 25 minutes in a 60-minute game that they can't go out and have a few drinks, hanging out by the pool kind of thing. And weed edibles have been in the bubble. Remember, it's legal in Canada. It's not a big deal. And no girls. There's been no girls in the bubble. So players are saying, that hasn't been a thing. Even the families, there are a few families that are in there. If your family's in Canada, you don't have to go through the same process. But the 14-day quarantine for families coming in from outside of Canada has kind of ruled out families coming in. So there hasn't been any women in the bubble, and other than the reporters, but obviously the reporters aren't hanging out drinking at the pool with all the players. That's, again, it hasn't been a party, is what they're saying, basically. This has not been a big party. And then the interesting thing, too, is the hotel bill shock at checkout. And, I hear this and I think, well, wait a minute. When I'm in Las Vegas, you've got your mini fridge, and if you pick something up, you bought it. So you have to be aware of your bill. And so every day, if we're in a hotel for 4 days, Yvonne and I go through what we've done that's going to end up adding to that bill, and we make sure we're checking with the hotel. So guys aren't doing this. They're just getting everything, and at the end, holy crap, we owe how much money? Yeah, no. The NHL, there is a per diem that's included with this, but you have to watch your hotel bill. Hotels are going to charge you for stuff you're doing. So I'm kind of surprised that players are seemingly less proactive than I am when I go to a hotel. I am every step of the way. It's like, here, would you like a drink? How much is that going to cost me? If I accept that, do I immediately owe $5 to the hotel? Do I owe 10? Is it 20? So, again, maybe it's just because when I'm in Las Vegas, I'm looking for all the hidden fees, because there are a lot of hidden fees. When you book a room in a hotel in Vegas, you're going to have to pay the resort fee, which is sometimes a lot of money. So you got to watch for that, too. You're not going to have the resort fees at an Edmonton or Toronto hotel, I wouldn't think. But, again, these guys are getting hotel shock at checkout. Ambient crowd noise. Some guys are saying they find it amusing. Some are saying it's something they don't even really think about it. There are some teams that were more affected by the lack of crowds, but a lot of the players have also said you kind of create your own energy. And I've talked about this where, just just pickup games I've been a part of, minor league games where there's a lot less fans. You still have changes in momentum. You still have some rather intense play. And I used to go to games in Chilliwack where we have like 600 fans in attendance, and those games were full of fights and goals, and there was all kinds of crazy stuff going on because these players get up for it. And to me, for these players that are making $5-10 million, maybe minimum $750,000, if you can't get your intensity level up for a hockey game and you're being paid $750,000 a year to play the game, I don't know. That says a lot about the players that are like, we couldn't really get involved. Are you sure? Because the team's paying you millions of dollars. You sure you couldn't go out there and make the same effort as the team that knocked you out? So I'm sure there will be a lot of talk about this in years to come. This is hopefully a once in a lifetime situation we're going through. And the NHLPA, from what these players are saying in this article, and again, it's all anonymous sources, but that's the only way you're going to get them to talk is if you agree to withhold their names. NHLPA is unlikely to approve a bubble situation again. And what the players said, and I agree with this, is, look, you're not going to get a bubble for the playoffs if you don't have it for the regular season. So if they say, all right, we're going to have regular season and we're going to travel from city to city, and then in the playoffs, we're going to have a bubble environment. Players are saying, no, if you can have the regular season, you can also have the playoffs. And one thing to keep in mind is that while we're watching Tampa and Dallas in the finals, and it's this, intense series, it's been 195 days since 7 NHL teams played hockey. And in a case of another 8 teams, they've played a maximum of 5 games in 195 days. So by the time we get to next season, there's some players who are absolutely going nuts not being able to play hockey. And there's some talk as well that maybe with the amount of players that haven't played or played very little over the last 6 months, and it'll soon be 7 or 8, those players may very well be more likely to vote in favor of a bubble scenario if that's the only option. But we would likely see more players opt out than we saw this time because there's players who don't feel as connected to it. So it's this whole thing. Again, I recommend people read the article. I'm going to link in the comment or in the description below this video. And it's fascinating to read. But again, when asked, players said no. Whoever wins this tournament might be the most deserving champion just because of going through this scenario where you have a global pandemic, you're away from your family. There's a whole scenario going on here that we never thought we'd see. So whoever emerges as champion, bona fide legit champions. Moving on to the next topic, Bob Boughner today had the interim tag removed from his title, so he is staying as coach. And apparently San Jose plans to be a cap team. We're going to see some teams trying to cut back on their finances because of the ongoing economic uncertainty going forward. Apparently San Jose is not going to be one of those teams, which means that Doug Wilson is serious about we're going to try to get back into the playoffs next season. And we can all look at that and go, well, they're not going to make the playoffs next year. The reality is, from one year to the next, there's always a surprise team that misses, a surprise team that gets in, and maybe they can be that team. Steve Sullivan apparently will be staying, according to Bill Armstrong. He will be running the draft as well. So Steve Sullivan not going anywhere. They let go of their head of scouting and assistant general manager today, but Steve Sullivan will be sticking around. And it sounds from what Armstrong's saying as well that Tocchet may very well stick around too, that he wants to sit down and have a talk with him about, vision of the team going forward. I don't think Tocchet's going to lose his job unless they have a completely different vision of how to proceed. As he said today too, he didn't go to the desert to get a tan. So he's down there to try to fix this with Alex Mariuello as owner and now with a new general manager. I do think things are going to get better for Arizona. I still think John Chayka, I'm not going to say did them a favor, but I think it might turn out to be a good thing for Arizona that they're getting a new general manager who seems to have an idea of how to do things differently. And of course, everybody's going to call him about Darcy Kemper. Those rumors are still out there, and legit sources are throwing them out there too, but I still think Arizona would be completely crazy to trade Darcy Kemper. I'm just throwing that out there. I think that would be insane because he's on a good cap hit and he's not that old. He's 30 years of age. He's not an old goaltender. So, again, you want to make sure you have your goaltending. Raanta, I don't trust Raanta to stay healthy for a full season. And I know Aiden Hill can be a decent backup, but to me, Raanta would be the one I'd be trying to move if you can get rid of that. Because the cap hit's almost identical between the two. Anyways. The buyout window, the NHL's announced, will start September 25th, so that's 3 days from now. We'll start to see buyouts, and it runs until October 8th, which is, of course, the day before unrestricted free agency begins. Look for buyouts early. I think teams have been well aware of who they want to buy out from when the pause started. Or when the pause ended, I should say, and when we came back into this bubble environment. I think there's been teams who were like, okay, these are the guys we're buying out. I think finances have been gone over ad nauseum since they extended this agreement. The CBA will go on for a while yet, and so I think teams have a good idea of who they're buying out. I would expect some early in this. And then immediately some of those guys who get bought out in September, October 9th, they're going to find a new team, probably playing for less money. Interesting news tidbit, too, for TSN. And again, I know since this TSN, it won't necessarily be available to people on the American side of the border or outside of Canada, for that matter. But Ryan Kessler talking about anti-inflammatories he was taking and how they caused him chronic digestive issues. And it's in the problem of pain documentary setup that the TSN's doing. I don't think we talk about this enough with sports. And this comes back to bubble life and edibles, because people are like, oh, they're taking edibles. Right. So these pain meds that players pop, and they pop them because to play you have to take painkillers. That's a quote from Ryan Kessler in this special on TSN. And this is a problem, and these painkillers have been a massive problem in sports that I think everybody can agree with for a very long time. Whereas if you're consuming edibles to help you sleep, to help with pain, there is virtually no risk to that that's been shown, and you don't get hooked on it. There's no it is really apples and oranges between taking that route or taking the painkillers that players traditionally have taken. And we're just starting to see just how many health issues you can have at a later date, and the fact that you can get hooked on that, and then when you're out of sports you might end up using something else instead. So I think there's a whole conversation to be had. I know that they've talked about CBD oil gets talked about a lot as well. I think there's a lot of conversations to be had there as well. And hopefully as we get into talking about players not having to, play through chronic pain as a start, That would be nice too. But again, they feel that pressure, whether it's just from their contract, even from an agent, from a GM, a coach, from teammates. This pressure, or just from themselves, that I need to play because, and so they end up taking things that maybe aren't beneficial to their long term health, so that they can be NHL players short term. So hopefully, with this kind of conversation out there, we can have a deeper conversation about how to make sure that players stay healthier for longer, and we get some of the painkillers that have been so prominent for so long out. Because I understand that the edibles not legal in every state in the U.S., but I don't put it in the same realm as some of the other drugs that are out there, and I don't. For the record, I don't. I never have. I know when I was in high school, you should try this and try that. And I'm like, and what does it do? And I don't really care. And so I never did. But I don't judge people that do. And I understand it. That in this case, as I said, if people in the bubble are, having a couple of drinks, and if they've got some gummies back at their hotel room, I don't see that as doing any harm. I think the problem I had with it is, and it's in the ESPN article, they label it as drugs. And I think, again, it's a whole conversation that is to be had at some other time. I think that then it's sensationalistic to label it as everything else, when we don't necessarily label the painkillers, which can be way more addictive and way more dangerous long term. And this is the thing too. Some guys are taking these things long term that are not meant to be taken long term. They're meant to be short term fixes, not a long term treatment. All right. Hopefully we have that discussion and it continues, because we want to see these players healthy after hockey. And if they're not good to play, then find other ways to either make it so they're comfortable playing, or let them feel like they can be out of the lineup. They don't have that pressure that some of them do. I think we're getting better. I think the NHL is getting much, much better. Look at concussions over the last 30 years. The NHL is way better than they were. But there's still a distance to be traveled here to get to where I think we want to be. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I'll talk to you again soon.